Hi guys, it's Tamara coming back at you with another video. Let's go ahead and jump in and start talking about our next topic. This is going to be a really short video because I have a session coming up, but I wanted to touch base with you guys and give you some tips on what to ask on your first therapy session. So we've been talking a little bit about suicide, a little bit about trauma. We've been trying to process the topic of suicide for adults, for children, adolescents, because of my book coming out May 1st, which is on adolescent suicide. And so my job 2 times a week up until May 1st has been to educate you guys in open discussion about suicide and some of the things that causes it and leads to it. So I've also integrated trauma as well, and am using my experience with the topic of trauma in my training and my professional life to kind of help me navigate this for you and teach you a little bit about it. So today I'm just going to talk a little bit about questions that you need to ask on your first appointment with a therapist if you're having suicidal thoughts. I'm also going to tailor this for adolescents a little bit because I want you to have some specific information and questions that you should ask the therapist if your child or adolescent or somebody that you know, or if you are experiencing suicidal thoughts. So let's go ahead and jump right in. I'm going to add right here on the side of the video up at the top here, I'm going to add some of my other videos about dealing with a crisis and identifying suicidal statements and thoughts and intent. So I'm going to put that right up here for you, and we're just going to go ahead and jump right in. Okay, so when you're meeting with a therapist for the first time, I think it's important to take the back seat a little bit and let the therapist lead the session. Let them ask you questions, let them get you started, but then once you get a little bit of an idea of how they communicate and what they're looking for in a client and what they can specialize in or help you with, I think that's the moment to ask them, do you have a couple minutes just to answer my questions directly? And I think an ethical, mature, and well-rounded professional would welcome that. One of the things that I do during my session is I start it by asking my client why they've decided to come to therapy. I then give them a little bit of feedback on what therapy can do for them. At the very end of that session, or maybe at the very, very beginning, I will tell them a little bit about me and my specialization and what I focus on. But then I also open up conversations so that they can ask me. I'm so sorry I'm stuttering. It's been a long week. I open up discussions so that they can tell me what it is that they're looking for, and so that they can also feel more comfortable with asking me questions. So the number one question, I'm going to give you guys 5, but the number one question that I think you should ask all therapists is, how are you going to help me through this process? Like, what do you see as the major issue for me? Am I, going the right direction, or do I need more specialized care? Do I need to work on this area of my life and not that area of life? Like, what do you see? Now, there's 2 ways that your therapist or your potential therapist can answer you. One way is your therapist can do like I do, and that says, I'll give you my, immediate idea or thought on you and what you're going through, but I could be off because I've only met you, for 45 minutes, but I will give you my impressions. That's usually what I do. I give them my impressions. I explain that I'm gonna have to diagnose you for insurance purposes and based on my intuition, but that we're gonna alter our diagnosis of you as we go along because there's things that I'm going to learn or things that I'm going to find out. So I think it's okay to ask your therapist, like, what do you see as my major issue? Do you think I need to focus here and not there? And how do you think that therapy is going to maybe help me, or can it help me? And I would be really humble and very modest about those questions. You don't want to come across as intimidating because that's going to shut your therapist down and maybe want to refer you. So be humble, be pleasant, but ask them for their expert opinion, okay? The second thing I want to ask, the second thing that you're going to want to ask, I should say, is you want to ask about fees, okay? What am I looking for as far as fees? And this is more of an administrative question, but I think it's important because I've had some clients come to me for sessions, and then when billing goes wrong, that adds to their depression, or it pushes them to feel even more suicidal because they feel helpless. So you want to ask that administrative question. What do I do with payments? Do I mail them in? Do I do it online? Do you take credit cards? Do you take checks, cash? And what happens if I have to cancel? What happens if something unexpected comes up and I have to cancel? What happens if my insurance stops paying for sessions? Will my therapy be cut immediately? So that's what you want to know. You want to know how your therapist is going to navigate the business side of your relationship. There's two sides of a therapeutic relationship. One is the business, right? The billing, the insurance, the finances, the legal papers, the informed consent, the state guidelines, the ethics. But then on the other side of that is the relationship, right? The rapport, the kindness, the compassion, the style of your therapist. So you want to be aware of those two things when you go in, okay? The third question that you should ask is, will I be able to bring important people in my life into the session? Some therapists are individual therapists and they do not want family coming in. They don't want, boyfriends coming in, husbands. But then there are other therapists who are well-rounded with family therapy and couples therapy, and they don't mind doing that. For the most part, you're going to get an individual therapist who may feel like you need to go to couples therapy or family therapy if you want to bring your family in. And they might refer you. They might see you individually and then decide to refer you for couples or family therapy. I mean, it just depends on the style of your therapist. Now, for me, because I work primarily with kids and adolescents and parents and families, if I'm seeing a child individually, I'm going to bring in other people. However, that then turns into a family therapy session, and there's other dynamics there. So just ask your therapist or your potential therapist, will I be able to bring other people in? And if so, what is that going to look like? Okay. The fourth question you want to ask is, what if I need to be hospitalized? How is that going to go? Because I've had a lot of clients in the past, primarily teens and adults or early adults, I should say, who have been so suicidal that I've had to call the police and have them do what's called a wellness check. A wellness check is when the police goes to someone's door and, they innocently just ask the question, how are you doing? Are you okay? So-and-so sent me, we're just coming to check on you. That can be intimidating, right? It can be scary too. Like, what's the police doing in front of my house? But there have been times in the past where I've had very suicidal and homicidal clients, and I've had to make that decision based on their safety and the safety of everybody else around them. So you want to ask your therapist, how is this going to work? If I ever have to end up in the hospital, how are you going to initiate that? Are there going to be police involved? Is there going to be an ambulance? Are you going to talk to me about it before you do it? Are you going to discharge me or refer me out or let me go if you have to send me to the hospital? Typically what I do is, if I have to 302 someone or hospitalize them against their will because they're a danger to themselves or others, I will not do a wellness check. I would just simply call a crisis center, have the crisis center go out and talk to them while I'm getting paperwork completed to put them in the hospital. I've only thankfully have had to do that 2 times with adults and 3 times with kids. But I think it's important to ask your therapist, like, what is this going to look like? And can you please help me understand your process? It's going to make you feel a whole lot better. The final thing and the 5th thing that I want you to ask about is, how many times a week do I need to come? Will you be honest with me and let me know, like, what's the typical schedule for people with my challenges? Do I need to come weekly, bi-weekly, monthly? Can I come as needed? Can you call me if there's a cancellation? Can I come when something pressuring is coming up, like an anniversary or a holiday, right? So you want to ask your therapist, how does scheduling go? Most therapists are pretty lax or lackadaisical about this. I am. I'll see you monthly. If you want to come monthly, I'll see you weekly or every other week. I'll see you holidays only. I'll see you while you're in college. I'll see you, if you're going to be getting married in the next month or so and you need to process this. So most therapists are lax about that, but then other therapists are not. So you want to ask them all the questions that you need to know up front, because once you sign the papers and once you make a commitment, your therapist is going to look for you to come back. So you don't want to just like up and leave and disappear. You want to ask those questions just to make sure that you guys are a good fit. All right, guys, thanks so much for being with me today. If you're interested in contacting me to send me some ideas or to ask me a question about some of these topics that I've been discussing, feel free to post in the comment section below. I'm going to put in the description box a few other videos that I've done in the past, and I'm also going to list them up here as well, so you'll have access to them. You're going to get all of my contact information at the end of the video, but if you want to contact me sooner than later, you can go to my Twitter page at Therapist T and send me some questions there or feedback. But as always, guys, I wish you well, and I'll see you really, really soon.